Welcome into the Sources Say podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball podcast on the KSR Podcast Network. I am your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. Very excited to be joined once again by the Smiths. We got Shawn Smith, coach at Frederick Douglass High School to my right, and then Spencer Smith of Synergy Sports to my left. So got the gang back together. What's going on, guys? Shawn, let's start with you. How are you? How the heck are you?
I am fantastic, Jack Pilgrim. How are you doing?
Oh, just we get to play the top 10 matchup at Rupp Arena this weekend. Are you crazy? I've never been better in my entire life. But before we dig into that, Spencer, how are you doing on this lovely Tuesday evening?
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's game week, right? Like we wait all spring and summer and fall for game week, and game week's here. It's a game that doesn't count. I don't care. Rupp's going to be packed. For those in the comments who have been asking, Shawn and I are not related. Sadly, we're not related. We just happen to have a very common last name. But people in the comments keep asking, so let's just address it early.
S. Smith. We got the alliteration going. We got the overlaps of the last names. But yeah, I love you both, and I'm very excited for this one because, as Spencer said, it's game week, baby. We got a top 10 matchup inside of Rupp Arena. Number 1, Purdue Boilermakers against the number 9 Kentucky Wildcats. It does truly not get better than that. We're going to talk the ins and outs of that matchup, who to watch for, just things that we're keeping a very close eye on, the things we need to see, things we want to see, all that good stuff. But before that, we haven't gotten the chance to dig into the blue-white game and kind of what unfolded there, the big news that came out of that blue-white game. Unfortunately, the one thing that we kind of had in the back of our mind that we said couldn't happen, did happen. Jaland Lowe goes down with a shoulder injury. Fortunately, it's his right non-shooting shoulder, and we've heard great things ever since, basically the shock of him going down and not being able to move it. I watched the training staff kind of pop it back into place, and it was like, oh, I don't love that. I do not like seeing him, be in excruciating pain and then walk off the floor, not able to move his shoulder, go straight back into the locker room. We're like, oh man, that's just the worst. That's the absolute worst. But fortunately, Mark Pope had some positive news to share, said that he really responded well 48 hours afterward, and, definitely not something to worry about long term, but it's still something that's very likely to keep him out. But I guess let's start, Shawn, first takeaway. When you see Jaland Lowe go down, what immediately goes through your mind in kind of the following steps of, okay, well, now we got to replace point guard 1. Who steps in? Who's going to be able to step up? Those sorts of things.
For me, it was oops, because it was literally the last thing I said on the show just 2 weeks ago was when asking about, the kind of what needs to happen, what do I want to see, and it was health, because that was the position that I was talking about, that Kentucky just doesn't have the depth that you can kind of going into the thing say, okay, you can withstand something there. How we've talked about Owe being out for a stretch, how we talked about the front court kind of being, what is without Jaden Quaintance right now. But that was the primary position where I just don't think you want to be disrupted. But if it's going to be disrupted, you would prefer it to be now and not February, March. Like now, maybe some of those depth questions I was talking about, you have an opportunity to kind of build it at that spot over the coming weeks. But initially, I'm thinking, please don't be serious. Please don't let this be something that drags into January, February and costs Kentucky, because I know the type of playmaker he is, the type of leader he's going to be for this team, and Kentucky needs Jaland Lowe to go the distance. And if he's not able to, it certainly puts Kentucky in a position to obviously not become what we all think they can be. And I was just holding my breath. And it's a blue white. I don't want to see anything like that, especially at that point of the season. You just get out of October, please. Like, don't start the injury bug that early.
It's the only way you can lose a blue-white game. There is no it's a win-win game unless something like that happens, and I think that's kind of Spencer and I were texting back and forth about it, but you love how competitive the 10 minutes. I had my gripes about the event itself and just wondering what really you get out of something like that when you watch the girls warm up and stretch for 30 minutes. They finally get into it. It's a running clock, 10-minute segment. They get off the floor. You're like, okay, well, didn't really learn much about them. They're playing against the boys' practice squad. You're like, okay, well, didn't learn much about that. Then the boys come out, good, hard, competitive, full 10 minutes with media timeouts and officials and all the the whole 9 yards. You love what you see. You're kind of grimacing at every, diving on the floor for a loose ball. They're really, really getting after it. And then Pope takes the mic and says, all right, we're going to an Elam ending, and we're going to be done at 34 points. Whoever gets the 34 points wins first. We're like, I thought the event just started. I mean, we're used to seeing full 40-minute scrimmages in this event, and now we're getting one segment plus an Elam ending. I just didn't love that. And then to open the Elam ending, you get Jaland going down Spencer. It was just kind of, the whole thing just left a pretty nasty, bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that you love seeing was that the guys competed. The guys got after it. I think, Jack, I texted you that the days of Terrence Jones scoring 55 in the blue-white game are over, right? Where it's just a glorified, let's run up and down, let's jog, get our steps in.
Darnell Dodson going for 26 didn't do anything for you?
Yeah, I forgot about that, actually. Yeah, nice Darnell Dodson call out. I didn't have that on my bingo card. I think, I didn't enjoy that. That was absolutely pointless. I like giving the fans something that they can watch and that they can really get into, and the guys competing and getting after it. I think that part was really good. But, yeah, it was too short. But then a guy goes down, and then everybody probably after Jaland Lowe goes down is like, just end it, just call it here, right? So everybody's probably rooting for the end. All in all, it did put a bit of a damper on the event. There was a lot of really good stuff leading up to Jaland Lowe's kind of moment, and then there was even some good stuff afterwards that I'm sure we're going to get into. But obviously, that's a damper. It could have been a lot worse. We're thrilled that it's as mild as it was, and hopefully, I guess the timeline, Jack, was 1 to 3 weeks, is what somebody reported.
Which we are 3 weeks away from right now. To the Louisville game. So, that's if that's the back end. I think Shawn having some technical difficulties, so we'll get him back in here. But we're 3 weeks exactly from today from the Louisville game, 2 weeks from the opener against Nicholls State. So I think that's also kind of something that we have to keep in mind, that just because, we're expediting the process in terms of playing teams with a pulse, we're used to, playing directional state or, mid-major U at this stage, and you don't really think twice about it. But because it's Purdue, it kind of magnifies the meaning behind this event. So I think when you take a step back and say, well, we're still a month away from the good stuff, I think it kind of adds alleviates some of that panic that we felt initially.
Yeah, no, I mean, 100%. I think he's a guy who's experienced enough. He's played at Louisville before. Like, you could feel comfortable that if he doesn't play before Louisville, you could still toss him out there for the Louisville game and probably expect him to kind of step in and hopefully not miss a beat. Shawn's exactly right. Like, we can go as far as Jaland Lowe is going to take us later in the year. So the most important thing is get healthy, make sure you feel good, don't have any nagging injuries like maybe he struggled with a little bit last year at Pitt. You want to just put a rest to that, where he goes into the middle back half of November, obviously all the way through conference play and stuff, feeling good and healthy. So all in all, the event, definitely some gripes, but also some really good stuff that I'm sure we'll dive into.
Yeah, we'll do that right now. I thought unfortunately, Jaland Lowe up to that point, I think was the best player on the floor. I thought he was terrific. I just think he commands an offense as well as anybody we've seen at that position at Kentucky in a minute. I think he just has a pace and a tempo to his game that he's in full control, has the ball on a string. You just love his comfort running the show, gets paint touches and just has eyes all over his head, just sees everything all over the floor. You just really kind of had a level of comfort with him running the show. So it kind of, that added to the level of panic when he went down, was, oh no, he was the best player on the floor, and now we don't know how long he's going to be out. Outside of Jaland, I thought Jasper Johnson, who may be stepping in as one of the go-to lead guards with Jaland out, however long that's going to be, I thought Jasper was terrific. I'd heard great things behind the scenes about how something had just kind of clicked for Jasper, and you really kind of saw that confidence for him as a shot maker, but also some on-ball stuff, kind of, going ISO and really comfortable creating his own shot outside of somebody else creating it for him. So outside of that, those were kind of my two best takeaways. I like Mo Diabate kind of going into takeover mode there to start the Elam ending. Andre Yelovich started making shots. So there were a lot of good things. Shawn, what jumped out at you, any individual, and glad that you're back. Yes, it was you just kind of froze for a second, but you look crystal clear now. We're good to go. What jumped out at you?
I'll follow up with you with Jasper, just because, that's a guy that we know the offensive talent and things are there. We look at this roster that's loaded with experience in the backcourt and things, and and who could step in and earn some minutes with Jaland Lowe out. And then I think that's probably where you start with him. We're talking about a guy that was a high-profile player out of high school and has tremendous upside, but what was his impact going to be? Making shots. So I think that obviously he played well. Malachi Moreno on the glass. That's an area that Kentucky is going to need here early in the season. So just seeing those guys for the moment that we got to see them in. I know it wasn't a long, lengthy thing, and we're obviously going to get that here in a couple of days, but you could pull bits and pieces from a lot of different directions. But it was kind of those guys that are young that I was looking at that we've wondered. We know that they have talent to make an impact, but how sustainable is that impact early on? Jasper's probably going to get some extended run and opportunity now. If Malachi's big on the glass, that's going to help his case as well. So I thought that those two were positive takeaways for me.
Spencer, does I think outside of that, Trent Noah and just the green light that he plays with and just the level of confidence that he has as a shooter, I think that really kind of jumped out at you. He did some interesting things on the glass and, just kind of had that nose for the basketball that we've talked about a lot. But, man, seeing that shooting in person really was just kind of, like, whoa, he really is not afraid to pull from anywhere at any time. And it did kind of have those Kobe Bryant flashbacks of, he's ready to fire away whenever the opportunity presents itself. So I love that. And then, yeah, Shawn, as you said, I love Malachi and just kind of that battle between Malachi and Brandon Garrison. Just, high floor of Malachi Moreno where he takes up so much space and just does so many unique things with his, size. And then Garrison's kind of the higher ceiling guy who has a bigger pop and, more versatile and runs the floor a little bit better. Just they give you two different looks that I'm really excited to see the way they kind of stagger those minutes and how Pope utilizes both of them in these early stretches. I think Friday is going to be a great test for both of them with Daniel Jacobson and, that Purdue front court. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, but those were some of my other things that jumped out at me, Spencer.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of really good stuff. Obviously the Jasper stuff you guys already touched on, so I'll move on from there. But I think there was a lot of really good stuff. For starters, the execution. I like the execution offensively. Like early on, first set out of the game for what was I think the blue team, right, with Owe was like a variation of the zoom where you actually pushed it to the corner and Owe curled it kind of sharp into the short corner for like a quick post up. Executed it perfectly. Owe just left it short, right? He just doesn't have his legs under him. With Jasper, we ran a lot of like early drag stuff, which worked out really well. Like Jasper would get to the right side of the floor so that a drag screen in transition, he could come off of it with his left hand. And he got really deep into the paint. I counted 7 times. He got really deep into the paint off of a drag screen. Made the defense collapse early, and then he just sprayed it out. And 2 of those was to Noah, who you just talked about. So he did a really, really good job getting into the lane off of that early offense stuff. I felt like, the execution was great. Defensively, the guys got after it, which was really fun to watch. Malachi's on the board was excellent. I think he had 9 rebounds, 4 of them were offensive. That's really good. We'll maybe get into the bad stuff in a second, but seeing BG with no offensive rebounds, I didn't quite love that. But it was really, really good. And Noah's going to be hard to keep off the floor because he just does a lot right. And he doesn't do a lot wrong. He's always somewhat in the right position. He makes the right play. He doesn't risk turnovers and stuff too often. He makes shots. He's always in on the glass. He just does a really, really good job as far as that goes. Aberdeen was a case where I don't feel like the box score tells the whole story. I think he finished 1 for 6. I thought he played really well. I thought he had good pace. I thought he was totally under control. He played well off the ball with Jasper. He got to the rim a few times effectively. 2 of the first 3 offensive possessions for the white team, he forced a turnover, right? He forced an offensive foul on one of them. Jaland Lowe had to push off in order to even catch the ball. And then he kind of got his hands in there and poked it out of bounds off of the offense on another one. So 2 of the first 3 possessions forced a turnover. I thought defensively he was really good. So a lot of really good stuff to be excited about. We're at the stage in preseason where the guys hate playing each other. And, everybody's familiar with everybody. They're just desperate to play somebody else. So I think some of that also came through and probably impacted some performances.
Yeah. We will start kind of slowly transitioning into the things that we saw in the blue-white and how it's going to directly kind of impact how we're going to view the Purdue game on Friday and things like that. But before that, a quick message, and this does tie directly into the Purdue game because we want you to be there with our friends at SeatGeek. I'm so excited for we were there with SeatGeek at the Blue White game. Now we can be there for the number one team in college basketball coming into Rupp Arena. As you can see, get in price $101 for an exhibition game. It sounds crazy, but how often do you get to see two national championship contenders going head to head inside of the most historic venue in college basketball? It is absolutely must see TV. So to be there for $100, I think that's just an absolute steal. You can get a little carried away if you're really, really want to be a part of the action. I saw down there $1,700 for courtside seats. So if you want to be down there and watch Mark Pope coach and be down there, at the eye level, you can, get that wallet out and have a good time with our friends at SeatGeek. They have a little bit of everything for the cheapest and most expensive opportunities to be there inside of Rupp Arena. So can't wait to be there. With over 35 million downloads, SeatGeek is the number one rated ticketing app with over 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. Wildcat basketball is right around the corner. It's actually here, and the NFL is also here. MLB playoffs now going into the World Series. I love using SeatGeek, and we're going through the kind of view from your seat and all that fun stuff. Man, SeatGeek is just absolute best in those regards, and that's why I have a code for you. You can use KSR10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with promo code KSR10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Shout out to our friends at SeatGeek. Make sure if you are going on Friday, you use our friends at SeatGeek and promo code KSR10 to get 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. So, bigger takeaways from Blue White that have you feeling, more confident going into the Purdue matchup, and maybe things that have you a little bit more hesitant. Shawn, I'll start with you. Obviously, I think the point guard position is the main thing that we have to address now that we feel pretty confidently that Jaland Lowe will not be a part of the equation. So, can Denzel Aberdeen be the guy? Do you trust him to kind of take over? We saw the numbers that he had when he took over as a starter at Florida. Really, really thrived in that starting role, shot really well. So do you trust him? What do you think of Colin Chandler stepping in? What do you think of Jasper Johnson? Can Otega Owe be the guy? Just your thoughts, general thoughts on the point guard position now with the question mark next to Jaland Lowe.
It's one of those things that is it going to be a by committee type of thing? Is it going to be multiple guys that kind of does it for Kentucky? Obviously, the value of adding Aberdeen at this point is just huge, and having a guy that's done it on an elite level team. But I'm choosing to look at this not from the negative side as much as I am from the positive side, because let's say that Kentucky gets in an NCAA tournament game at some point, and it's a Sweet 16 going to the Elite Eight, or Elite Eight trying to break through the Final Four, and there's foul trouble, or there's something at the point guard position, and Jaland Lowe's not able to run 32, 33, 34 minutes, and you've got to go somewhere else. So this allows you to get not just a look, but you get a look against an elite team that is viewed as a national championship contender. And you get to work on this without him in that moment. So, I think that it's a negative just because you don't have him, but the opportunity becomes a positive because you can kind of develop some of that depth and kind of see where you want to go. I would lean Aberdeen right now, but I think it's going to take more than just him to kind of get Kentucky through this stretch. And I think Colin Chandler is going to chip in. Is it Jasper getting some opportunities there as well? But to me, a by committee thing, you see always slide over and do some stuff. But I think that's where it starts. Defensive intensity. Really encouraged about some of the things that you see on that end of the floor. Kentucky's going to need it playing some of the actions they're going to have to defend. Like, you're going to have to be very disciplined defensively because Purdue runs really good stuff. They're going to run some of that gut zoom action that they like to do. And Matt Painter is just a genius on the offensive end of the floor. So Kentucky's going to get tested there too.
Spencer, I think we all had our eyes on the Braden Smith, Jaland Lowe head-to-head. We know what Braden Smith is. We know just kind of the attention that he brings as the, probably National Player of the Year favorite entering the season. Obviously an All-American, obviously Big Ten, Player of the Year. Kind of the do-it-all threat there at the point guard position. So, knowing the magnitude of the individual matchup with Braden, do you throw Denzel at him and say, let's try to make life as difficult as possible for Braden? What kind of test is it going to be for Kentucky's group of guards going, knowing the kind of the name brand matchup that we're getting individually there with Braden?
Yeah, I think I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how Pope plays it because I think what Pope does on Friday might be very different if we saw Purdue, let's say, in like a Sweet 16 or Elite Eight matchup, right? Um, so it'll be interesting to see what he does. If it was me, I would probably hit him in waves, right? Where Aberdeen would take him for 2-3 straight minutes and really hound him, and then you move, Colin Chandler onto him, and then if we had Lowe would be in there, and Jasper would be in there, right? And like you just kind of throw different bodies at him to really wear him down, so that hopefully by middle of the second half, his legs are kind of not totally underneath him, and he's coming up short on a lot of shots and stuff. I think that's probably how I would play it. I think this is a good opportunity to see where some of these guards are at. Aberdeen's not going to be scared. I can tell you that. Aberdeen's going to go in there and say, I'm out of the two of them, I'm the one that's won a national championship, right? I'm the one that was on the floor as the buzzer went off, guarding, Houston's guards who are no slouch. And I think he's going to want to embrace that matchup quite a bit. So if I had my guess, I think Pope's going to let Aberdeen kind of battle it out with him for a lot of it. But I think if that was a little bit later in the year, I think Pope would maybe do some different things. It's going to be fascinating to see what we do. And we got to remember Purdue is working in some new guys as well, so it's going to be interesting to see how they are on the road, tough environment. How do they respond to Shawn's point, our defense? Our defense looks pretty stout right now, even before JQ gets in there. So how do they respond? There's a lot of really fascinating things, and there's a reason why these scrimmages and exhibitions tend to go sideways and get some really weird scores because a lot of these teams are still figuring it out a little bit. So Friday's going to be really interesting.
Hey, either of you guys, just outside of Aberdeen, because he's kind of the shoe-in, obviously, but between Jasper and Colin, what do you like about those two specifically to be able to step in, maybe be the Denzel Aberdeen that Denzel's now kind of sliding up to Jaland's role, where they are probably kind of stepping into what Aberdeen's role was going to be. What do you like about what those two kind of bring to the table? If one of you want to take Colin and the other take Jasper.
With Jasper, I think just the ability to make shots is the thing that I like the most with him, and I think that's an instant impact that he can play. Like he can get out and run. He can stretch the floor in transition. He can stretch the floor in the half court and, a quick first step. Like he's got some things to his game that I think Kentucky's going to need offensively, especially early in the season, that's his biggest way for me to earn minutes. I get it. You got to be able to defend to some extent, but if you can make shots consistently, I think Mark Pope will find a way to get him opportunities. So that's what I'm kind of looking for with him.
Yeah, it's going to be a tale of two coins or two sides of the same coin with those guys because Jasper is really sharp offensively right now. He can do things that nobody else on the squad right now can do, and he can do it in a really crafty way. Defensively, he's a little bit behind. So with Colin, on the other hand, it's a little bit the opposite. I loved what I saw defensively from Colin in the blue-white scrimmage. Late in the game, as the white team was trying to mount a comeback, Colin forced 3 turnovers in a 5-possession span, which was really good to see. He was locked in. He was engaged. He was making it hard to catch. He was in the right spot. He would get 2 feet in the paint in transition. He was doing a lot of really good stuff defensively that you really like. Kind of the opposite of Jasper offensively is where he needs to come along a little bit. He was, I think, 0 for 7 from the field, 0 for 6 from 3 in that matchup. I counted of his 6 threes, 4 of them he hesitated beforehand. So he kind of did that thing where he catches it, fakes to kind of see if the defender is going to go, and the defender doesn't. So then he shoots it. Like the efficiency on that shot is through the basement. The efficiency is like a third of what it is if he just caught it and just shot it like normally because you're out of rhythm and everything. It tells me he's not super confident in his shot. Like he'd prefer to put it on the floor, but those guys aren't biting on his pump fake. So then he's just like, okay, well, I guess I'll shoot it. Whereas like he needs to get to a point where he's like, if I catch this and I've got more than 4 or 5 feet, it's going up, right? He's just got to get to that point. So offensively, he did not look himself. I just think he also tried to play a little bit outside of himself was my takeaway, especially after Jaland Lowe went down. He seemed to kind of turn into this guy where he's like, well, Jaland Lowe's out, so I got to be the offense. And I've said this on this podcast before, and some people might agree, some people might not. He's got to be the DeAndre Liggins of this team, where DeAndre Liggins was at his best. Yeah, like he was at his best where he just went out on the floor and he was just defense. And then on the offensive end, he was just like an Energizer bunny. He was running around. He was being hard to guard. He was crashing the glass. He was cutting. And if he was open for a 3, he would take it. And like that's what DeAndre Liggins made his career at Kentucky doing. And I just think like Colin's got to be that guy. He's got to be really comfortable just being like, I'm out here to defend my tail off. And then on offense, I'm just going to be really hard to guard. I'm going to crash the glass. I'm going to do all these things that are really difficult. And I'm going to make my impact there. And I'm going to get my 9 or 11 points that way. So I still have a lot of confidence in Colin. I think he's going to have a great year. I would just like to see him settle more into that role. And I just didn't quite see it in the blue and white game. But that's why you do this stuff, right? To kind of figure that out.
Yeah, no better test either with Purdue coming. So we heard from Mark Pope at the UK Alumni Association tip-off luncheon, Shawn, and obviously the question of Jalen's health was brought up, and then who replaces Jalen when he's out, names Denzel first, and then kind of goes through the whole list and basically says everybody on the roster is vying for this position. Says even Malachi Moreno says, hey, look what you did with Amari Williams last year. I could be that. So everybody on the team wants to be the point guard. He says everybody but Andrei Yelovich. He has a no dribble tag. You're not allowed to put the ball on the floor. So you get in your corner, as Kellen Grady would say. Get in your corner, you take shots, and you enjoy it. So outside of that, he brought up that Ortega was very vocal about like, hey, this is my team. I want to be the guy to bring the ball up. I want to initiate the offense. Let's do this. How comfortable would you be with Ortega kind of being the initiator? And, Pope just talked such a big game all offseason about that was kind of, his vision, his facilitating, his playmaking, those things kind of being the biggest area of improvement that he was capable of making for him to become the first round pick that he wants to be. Is this a test for him to potentially step in and kind of be a lead guard?
It absolutely is. And I think that's why you see him eager to want that opportunity, right? Because that's what it's going to take to jump up draft boards. Like Ortega had an incredible year last year. We know his numbers at Oklahoma. We know the game winners and things that he did at Kentucky down the stretch last year. We know the praise he's getting entering this season. But it's if he matches it and does the same thing, he probably still lands exactly where he was when the season ended a year ago, right? Like there's got to be those other parts of his game that he shows to improve draft stock, to improve what he can be at the next level. This is kind of that opportunity, and that's why I think you see him wanting to take ownership and leadership and take charge of this thing. I would feel comfortable with it. I would feel comfortable just because it's a guy that's gone through it. And anybody that was on that roster a year ago has the experience of playing without point guards. They had to do it on the fly for a lot of the back half of that season. When Kerr went down, Lamont Butler goes down, Jackson Robinson's is out. It forced a lot of guys to do a lot of different things. So I think having familiarity with some of these positions, Jack, and some of these guys like Colin Chandler, Ortega Owe that have been on this roster in this backcourt, I don't think it's really an uncomfortable thing. Even though you want Jaland Lowe out there, it's something that they've navigated before, and I think they'll have success navigating it again until they get it back. But I would feel really comfortable if Ortega Owe is running the show and allow some other guys to be in their role that they were brought in here to be in.
As we're sliding up the rotation, Spencer, where does that put Cam Williams and Trent Noah and those guys at kind of the 3-4 that could see themselves, moving up the rotation?
Yeah, I mean, I think if it was me, I think Noah's starting on Friday against Purdue, right? If it's me, it's Aberdeen and Owe and Noah as those kind of 3 perimeter guys. So I think if you're Trent Noah, you say, okay, like, yeah, I'm going to be starting against arguably the number 1 team in the country on Friday, which is a pretty cool opportunity for a kid from the mountains. I think Cam Williams as well. He's another guy that I've heard a lot of really good stuff in the summer about. I heard he had a great practice today. Didn't see it in the blue-white game, right? I don't think he got a shot up, if I remember correctly. He might have gotten one
Correct.
up. I don't remember, but that just can't happen if you're Cam. He's too talented of a shooter, for Colin and guys like that to be getting 4, 5, 6 threes up on the rim, and for Cam to not get any. I just think it's disappointing to see because the talent is there, so you'd like to see him assert himself. This is a great opportunity for him in these exhibition games to really feel that out. And again, I'm hearing he's having great practices. He's making shots. You just like to see him have a little bit more of an impact on the game, even if he's not putting shots up on the rim. How else are you impacting the game? Are you on the glass? Are you just defending your tail off? Are you diving on the floor? Are you bringing a lot of energy? I don't know how much of that I saw from him in the blue-white game. I think he just got a little lost in the sauce, and I think you need to, as a young guy being at Kentucky and in the spotlight, he's got to probably work through that. great opportunity for him, to your point, Jack. Like, he's moving up the depth chart a little bit. He'll get some more minutes than he would have gotten otherwise because Jaland Lowe's out. So somebody's got to take some of those minutes in the rotation. And I think for him, it'll be a really good opportunity to kind of work through some of that. For Noah, it's been unbelievable. Like, he's been unbelievable all summer from what I've heard. He's been great in everything that we've seen on TV so far this year. So I'm excited for him to hopefully maybe potentially get to start on Friday.
And that's the thing, right? Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be minutes at the point guard position. That's kind of where the increase is. Like, it can, whoever slides there, it can be minutes at the 3 or the 4 that's kind of available just because of the difference in bodies that are available on the roster. So it'll be interesting to see how they navigate it Friday night.
So number 1, Purdue comes to town. Let's dig a little bit deeper into their personnel and kind of how that stacks up with individual matchups and things like that. So it's a 3-headed monster at Purdue. They're returning 2 all-American level talents in Trey Kaufman-Wren, who led the team in scoring last year, 20.1 points per game, and then Braden Smith, obviously, his resume speaks for itself. And then that sneaky sharpshooter, Fletcher Lawyer. I remember watching him. It was a Made Hoops event in somewhere in Indiana. I don't even remember, but I remember he had just committed to Purdue. And he was a 3-star, maybe fringe 4-star, and he was just lighting up the gym. And I remember going, there will be a day that we're talking about Fletcher Lawyer scoring 27 points in a Sweet 16 game for Purdue. And here we are. He's, now third option, the go-to shooter for Purdue, for number 1 team in the country. Just like, it's funny just how life works, and you're seeing these guys. But this is a locally grown, homegrown talent team with Purdue. But those are kind of it's the 3-headed monster, and they've added some new unique pieces. But I think the conversation starts with those 3, Spencer.
Yeah, I think for Trey Kaufman-Wren, like, the biggest thing is, how are we going to match physicality-wise? Like, how are we going to match up against them? Are we going to kind of try to own that matchup a little bit? I think looking at last year's matchup with Alabama, because remember, Alabama played Purdue last year, right? Last November. I think it was in one of those events. It might have been at Alabama. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. In that game, Mo Diabate only played about 10 minutes. So he had to sit there and watch Trey Kaufman-Wren score 20-something on his Alabama squad. And he was probably, knowing Mo Diabate and everything I've seen about him in the media and stuff, he was probably seething mad, like, coach, like, let me at him, like let me go. So I'm hoping that maybe Mo D is going to come out with a little bit of an edge on him, being like, I saw this guy kind of give us a show last year, and I'm gonna knock that off and Rupp. I think that'd be really fun. Again, up against Braden Smith, that's going to be a tough one. I just think, like, he's the best point guard in America for a reason. And I think, it'll be interesting to see how we do, but it's about keeping him in check and making everything hard. He's going to get what he gets, but I think we got to make it harder than it would be otherwise. And so really, really locking in on that. And then for the big fella down low, it's just got to be about, like, are we taking that personally, owning the glass? Like, for instance, I saw a play with BG and Malachi in the blue-white game where it was early on, Malachi completely wedged BG right under the rim, got an offensive rebound, put it up on the glass for a putback. If you're BG, like, that can't happen. You're a junior. You know what I mean? You got NBA aspirations. You got to say, nobody wedges me underneath the rim, right? I'm clearing this space out. So I'd like to see those 2 kind of really own that 5 spot and own the glass, and us really get in. And it's not even so much about them getting the rebound. Sometimes it's BG carving out that space and wedging his man under the rim so that Trent Noah can get in there and get the board, right? So, when you talk about rebounding that committee, there's so much about rebounding that doesn't go on the box score. And I'd like to see more of that from the 5 spot in the Purdue game. So we've got to take it personally. I know it's a scrimmage, but it'd be really cool to set the tone for the year by knocking off number 1 on Friday night. So I hope that these guys are ready to rock and roll. I think that they will be.
Shawn, with Braden Smith, as talented as he is 6 foot, $170. I mean, there's not a whole lot to him. It was almost a favorable head-to-head matchup, just physically, with Jaland Lowe, kind of a very comparable sized human being. Denzel being as strong and physical, and the athleticism and the length, those things. Is there maybe kind of a sneaky advantage there physically for Denzel to potentially win that matchup? Is there an opening there for this to kind of be a win potentially favoring Denzel?
Yeah, I mean, I think Denzel has an opportunity to physically set the tone, and with athleticism and length and size and everything else. But Purdue is just so good at manipulating what they do and running their actions and getting touches where they want it, and the out of transition and the half court, like they play with such a pace. And this was a program that I got to watch up close last fall when I did my college tour. It was the first stop that I went to. So I mean, I got to see how intentional Matt Painter is in October, in late September, early October. So I know what's walking through the door Friday night, but I do think that Aberdeen has a physical advantage in that matchup. It's just, can Kentucky be disciplined and communicate well enough to defend the actions that they're going to have to defend? And it's a great test. And we've seen Kentucky be number one preseason. We've also seen them play number one early in the year, but we've never seen it when it didn't count. So this is a really cool opportunity. Like it doesn't matter, but yet it matters, right? Because it's one of these things that you're coming into Rupp Arena. It's October, and the environment's probably going to be the best. It's going to be the best October environment we've ever seen in the building, like beyond Big Blue Madness or anything like that. So the stage is set. It doesn't mean anything for resume, but right here, it means a ton. And I think that this is a great opportunity for Kentucky, with not just one man down, but multiple men down, to say, okay, this is where we are preseason. This is what people think of us. Imagine what we can be when we get everybody in here. So I think it's a huge opportunity for Kentucky to kind of swing, like we talked about last year when they beat Duke early. It was a tone setter for the rest of the year. Even though this one doesn't go on the left or the right of the win-loss column, it goes somewhere in here that you'll remember it for months, and you can build off of it regardless of what happens. But the momentum of them winning would be massive, and I think Aberdeen can set the tone defensively in that matchup. And if he handles it, I think Kentucky has a great chance.
Spencer, in terms of the front court specifically, Daniel Jacobson goes down with a broken leg 2 games into his freshman year last year. Kind of forces Purdue to get creative and have Kaufman Wren slide down, play kind of a small ball 5 role all year. Kind of had to go 5 out. They had to get really creative there, and they use that as kind of an excuse when he came back to say, all right, well now Kaufman Wren can get back to his natural position, and Jacobson can kind of be the guy in the front court. So I was obviously watching him closely at Team USA minicamp, U19 minicamp out in Colorado Springs this summer. Just calling a spade here, just being totally transparent, I wasn't impressed. I really just didn't love a whole lot of anything that Daniel Jacobson gave. And to be totally honest, Malachi Moreno was giving him the business the entire training camp, the entire mini camp, and was trending toward making the team and potentially starting on that team over Daniel Jacobson before he went down with I think it was a hip strain or something, and he had to go home early. It sucked. The timing was just terrible. But I really liked that head-to-head matchup because, seeing those two alongside other elite talent, Malachi was right there as the incoming freshman McDonald's All-American, giving him the business. So I am very intrigued by that individual matchup, Daniel Jacobson and Malachi Moreno. But then there's the other side of the equation with Oscar Clough, coming from South Dakota State, who is a kind of freak of nature, 6'11", 250-pound double machine, where I think he is going to be a problem for Purdue this season. I think he is going to end up taking, if he hasn't gotten the job already, he's going to end up owning that position all season long. So how, in your eyes, do you see that front court battle kind of going head to head, where both programs will probably be staggering those center minutes, Daniel Jacobson and Oscar Clough, and BG and Malachi, at least for what we're going to see on Friday?
Yeah. So with Jacobson, it's interesting because he's 7'4", I think is what he's listed at, which is
a Matt Painter special.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's a specialty. And to Shawn's point, Painter's an unbelievable coach. He schemes really, really well. He puts guys in positions to their advantage. Like what you wouldn't see at Team USA minicamp is like schemes designed to put Jacobson in like solid positions to succeed. The thing about him is, anytime somebody's 7'3", 7'4", 7'5", it's so different than anything that you've seen on a day-to-day basis for pretty much your whole life. So when it's been schemed properly for a guy like that to kind of get in some good spots and all that kind of stuff, it tends to kind of really throw you off. So I expect Painter to do some of that. Like, for instance, when I was in South Florida, we played Central Florida twice a year, and they had Taco Fall. Anybody remembers Taco Fall from the Duke
The
game?
king, Celtics legend, Taco Fall.
Yes, Celtics legend. I think his jersey's in the rafters somewhere.
Hell
He
yeah.
was so hard for us to kind of scheme against because it's like, well, what do we do? This is so different than anything we've seen all year. So Jacobson kind of gives them a little bit of that, and I expect Painter to put him in a lot of good positions to succeed and run some really good stuff. A lot of high-low, like a lot of positions for him to kind of wedge and create a little bit of extra space in the paint. With Clough, I think the big thing for him is that he's so big, he's so strong, he's obviously really experienced. So it's going to be a big challenge for BG. That's the kind of guy who halfway through the possession, the ball is 2 passes away, and like BG or Malachi's instinct will be to kind of stand up. And that's when Clough just hammers you right in your hip, and you're cleared all the way to the other end of the block, and they're able to get it down to him. And you just can't allow that to happen. He's going to go to the glass every time. So you've got to be ready for that. You've got to, if you're a guy like BG, you're a guy like Malachi, those are the guys that before the game, I'd say you got to be okay if you don't score a single point in this game. You're going to win or lose your battle if every single up and down the floor you are fighting and scratching and clawing, trying to get space and trying to get him out of the lane. And that's kind of what you got to do. You got to make things really, really hard for him. He had a couple games last year. I think against Alabama, I think I saw he scored 21. Apparently everybody did well against Alabama last year. He had a couple games a little bit earlier on where he struggled. And he had a couple games in conference play where he really struggled. I watched some clips on Synergy. Guys were coming down and they were kind of digging at the ball. They were raking at the ball. So really, really heavy-handed, like the guards being able to dig and stuff. And you can do that to a point. Like you can't do that too much off of Lawyer. You can't do that at all off Braden Smith. So it'll be interesting to see how Pope kind of has that schemed with if he gets the ball on the block. But honestly, it's just got to be a motivation thing for those two. You just got to say, you got to make life for him hell for the next 40 minutes. If he scores a bucket, he's got to fight through 2 or 3 of us in order to get that bucket to where, again, halfway through the second half, he's exhausted. He's spent. So it'll be a good test for the front court without JQ to see how they do against those two.
And while we're talking about newcomer Spencer, Omer Mayer is a very intriguing kid coming over from Israel, who they have kind of penciled in as the successor to Braden Smith. Is kind of the hey, he has the keys, obviously, but they're gonna be yours as soon as he leaves campus this offseason. But my understanding, reading some of the reports from the summer and all that, is that he's kind of pushed his way into the lineup. We're like, hey, we really preferred to stagger the minutes between Braden and Omer, but he has been so good that you're like, well, he might just have to step in and play the 2 kind of off ball and have them, maybe Braden plays some off ball and have Omer kind of step in as the lead guard. So kind of a good problem to have that Omer is ahead of schedule and is going to be very, very good at some point, whether it's immediately or down the road. So what do you like about him? What kind of dynamic does he bring to the table specifically for our attention on Friday? Because that's all Kentucky fans care about.
Yeah, he's electric. He's really good. He's super talented. He gets up and down the floor really fast. He's got good vision. I think he's 6'4", right? So he's got some good size to him. So he's a little bit bigger than Braden Smith and all that. He's got a good handle on it. Defensively, he's not like out of this world. I don't think, at least. I think I watched some of his FIBA tape and stuff, and I wasn't blown away with his effort over there. But again, Painter's such a good coach. You got to assume he's going to have him ready to go on the defensive side. But he's maybe a guy you can attack a little bit. But yeah, he's a guy who can make shots. He can get to the rim. He makes the right play more often than not. He can get a little overexcited sometimes, and so maybe he's going to be a little bit turnover prone, especially this being his first big kind of game of the year in a really, really electric environment. Maybe that rattles him a little bit to where they want to lean more towards Braden Smith and do that staggered approach like you're talking about. But it'll be interesting to see. But he's electric, right? Him and Jasper Johnson could have a really fun kind of back and forth, and maybe some guys
I like that.
Yeah, some guys off the bench who come in and just totally change the game with the way they play and their energy and stuff. They could have similar impacts, so that could be a fun matchup to watch.
Shawn, you brought up earlier the game mattering. Does it matter? Does it not? And I feel like it'll matter a whole lot more if we win the game. It'll matter a whole lot less if we lose the game. But how should fans go into Friday night, knowing the circumstances, knowing just how unique this experience is going to be, how early things are, knowing the kind of the injury dynamic with, JQ out, Jaland Lowe out, knowing that this isn't going to be the team we see in March Madness, but still it's a really nice measuring stick that you would never, ever get playing Georgetown College, not Georgetown Hoya. So how should fans approach this one, and how much should they care about the result, if you will?
Every time Kentucky basketball tips it up and plays, it matters. And that's how this fan base is, regardless of what us three says for the next 15 minutes, people are going to wear it on their sleeve. They're going to go into work on Monday morning bragging about it, critiquing it. And it's one of those things that it doesn't impact anything to do with your resume. Like win, lost, it doesn't. But internally in your locker room, it can do a lot of things for you. For film purposes, it can do a lot for you as well. Like there's so many things that you can take out of this. But when you're talking about from a fan's perspective, it's one of those things that you're realistic. You know, Kentucky's down a lot of important pieces in the front court, at the point guard spot, and all these things. And you're working in new faces. You're working, way back, and all these other things that you're kind of trying to figure out. But to me, it's one thing that if Kentucky goes in there and competes, if they win, great, because then you're thinking, wow, man, when you get all these other pieces back, what can it take Kentucky to another level? But obviously Purdue in October is not going to be what Purdue will be in March. So you're not getting their best quality. You're not going to get Kentucky's. But if Kentucky goes in there and competes, I don't see any negatives come from this, win or lose, unless you just get absolutely beaten by 20 to 25 points. And I think you kind of look at this and go, okay, that was in our building. We took one on the chin, whether we're a man down or not. I just think fans should look at this thing and go, okay, it's a free one. Let's enjoy it. Let's pack this place out. Let's show why Kentucky basketball is the best, even in like late October. But it's a huge statement if you go in there on that stage and find a way to win that can kind of carry over into the next few weeks when you go to Louisville and some of these other games at Champions.
Spencer, I checked our friends at BetMGM. No odds for Friday night. It doesn't shock me, but in case you were curious, no, there's not an official line. What would you put the line at going into Friday night, knowing what we know about the lineups and injuries and all that stuff? And how do you see it playing out? What are some of the matchups to watch? What are some of the things that you think will favor either Kentucky or be to the detriment of Kentucky with Purdue winning?
Yeah, I think if I was going to set the line, it'd probably be Purdue 2.5 with Jaland Lowe out. Right. I think.
All right. I like that. I could do that. I could do that.
Yeah. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. Did I say Kentucky or Purdue? I would put it at Purdue 2.5.
You said Purdue 2.5. I'm
okay,
cool
so
with it.
All right. I'm losing my mind over here. Yeah. I would put it at Purdue 2.5. I just think that they would probably be favored if it was an actual game and all that. I think the thing for us is one, we're home. Right. So we have to have that mindset that we don't lose in Rupp. Right. And we'll talk about this a little bit later as we get closer to SEC play and stuff. But I've always contended that the biggest thing that Kentucky has going for us in SEC play, or really regardless, is that we have Rupp and nobody else does. Right. That's got to be our mindset, that we don't lose in that building. And I think Pope is kind of big on that. And I think we lost a couple last year in Pope's first year, injuries and all that kind of stuff. You can say whatever. I know that pissed him off. I think when we walk in that building, Pope's expectation is we win. Whether we're playing Georgetown, Kentucky, or Georgetown Hoyas, it doesn't matter. We're winning that basketball game. Kind of like Shawn said, when we throw the ball up, it matters. And I think Rupp's going to be electric. I think we're going to really feed into that. I think it's going to be a tough environment. That's one thing going for us. I think our depth, even without Jaland Lowe, I think our depth is like we are a deeper team and a more experienced team overall across the board at this level than Purdue is, right? Purdue has a little bit more continuity, like in their starting lineup and stuff, as far as guys who played for Purdue last year. But we've got guys on this roster with also national championship experience, Final Four experience. We've got guys that have played Power 5 basketball at a really high level at different schools. And so I think our depth, I'm hoping will start to wear them down and will take over at a certain point. And then I think defensively, in my opinion, from the little bit that I've seen about Purdue and then everything I've seen about Kentucky, I expect us to be the better defensive team. I expect us to really own that end of the floor. That's my hope. Even without JQ, I expect us to be the better defensive team. And I think that will lend itself to creating a lot of offense. I really liked in the blue-white scrimmage, we got the ball down the court really quickly. The blue team especially did a really good job of that. Aberdeen and Jasper pushed it every chance that they got. Noah was sprinting to the corner, right? We had bigs running the floor. Malachi especially was sprinting the floor every time. We got to play with that pace kind of throughout. And again, kind of the theme is kind of wear them down as we go. So I think defensively, that's going to kickstart a lot of stuff for us offensively. Just a message to the fans. We're not going to have everything in the playbook like set. Like you're going to watch our offense and hopefully it's going to be great and we're going to score a lot of points, whatever. That's not the final playbook either though, guys, because we're still almost 3 weeks away from the actual season tipping off. Like we're still putting in a lot of sets and stuff. We're still working on that every day. So our offense isn't going to be what you're going to see 2-3 weeks from now. So we almost have to rely on our defense a little bit to generate some of that. And I expect that it will.
You're going to put film out there, but you're not going to put all your film out there.
100%.
Yeah. And like because once again, this doesn't do anything for your resume. Beating Louisville in a few weeks, winning those games, those are the ones that add to your resume and put you and does something for what you're wanting to do in March. So I agree with Spencer. Like the playbook is, you're going to see some things, but you're not going to see everything that Mark Pope's going to throw. Now, if this game's played in March, Mark Pope probably coaches it a different way. Even entering what it would be if it's the first time. Like if it's the first time you're seeing them, obviously there'll be film and stuff on Purdue. But I'm interested to see just how much Kentucky shows. But I think the defensive end of the floor and the effort there, those things that you're not necessarily looking for in a scouting report, that you're active defensively. Can you get some garbage buckets, offensive rebounds, things like that? Like is it energy plays that can carry Kentucky in this one?
Shawn, you said it won't impact your resume, but should it? Like, should we use this game as we look at the AP polls, as we look at, kind of the analytics and the ratings and the computer numbers that kind of impact the preseason and what the day one polls look like? Should we use, I feel like this is a bigger indicator of what the teams look like than anything we saw, that people just kind of made up over the summer and what the AP poll is right now. Like, this is our first chance to actually see all these teams with our own eyes, or the secret scrimmages. You're seeing the box scores with, Ole Miss beating Houston and all that stuff. I feel like this is the first chance for actual voters to see the teams, and it should. Like, they should, reset the poll next week and say, hey, yes, the season hasn't officially begun, but games have been played, and I feel like there could be some movement. Like, what if Purdue gets absolutely smacked on Friday? Like, would we still view them as the number one team in the country the same way that we would have right now? Or if Kentucky gets smacked, do we view them as the number 9 team in the country? I just feel like there is I feel like we should take, even if it doesn't count as a win or a loss, officially it should mean something in the national eyes.
I mean, you got to weigh it somehow, right? Because it's 40 minutes of basketball and you get an eye test for Purdue. It's walking into an environment that people don't walk into in October, right? Like you're not getting a quad 1 win for it if you win it either way, but it's got to give you something. And it's got to, like, for us, we'll be on here talking about it and breaking it down, and we're going to have our opinions of Kentucky before they ever play a regular season game that's been different than any other season in the past. Like, you get something out of this regardless of how it goes, because you don't walk into something and without knowing here in a couple of weeks, because you're going to say, okay, when Kentucky went up against Purdue, and this is one of those preseason number 1 teams that I'm not worried about falling off the cliff. Like you have those that lose exhibitions early, like it's been Kansas, it's been some others, like that they don't have the year that you quite expect them to have. Well, this Purdue team, I expect to be a top 10 team all season long. Like, I think that's a really good team. They got a great experience. They have an excellent coach, offensive mastermind. Like, they have all the qualities that you're looking for when you're trying to figure out if you're good. And I think Kentucky's going to get a test and a chance to figure out if it's good, even if it's a man or 2 down. I do think you have to weigh it a certain way. And I think this game will influence people's opinion of Kentucky maybe more than it will Purdue. And because if Kentucky competes without its point guard, without a guy that we think will emerge and be the starting 5, what does that say about what Kentucky can become when those pieces do fall into place?
Yeah, I think I agree with everything Shawn said. And I also just think, like, I'm a big believer in perception is reality. And there's going to be a perception that comes out of this, not only from like a team aspect, but think about the individual guys, right? Think about a guy like Cam Williams, who went out there in the blue-white game, maybe struggled a little bit, couldn't get into his rhythm. If he goes out there against the number one team in America, hits 3 threes, finishes with 13 points on 4 of 6 shooting, played great defense, everybody's saying, wow, Cam Williams, whatever. He starts to say, wow, I can do this. Like, yeah, I played at Tulane last year, but I can do this. I just did this against Purdue. What does that do for his confidence when he steps on the floor against Louisville on November 11th, right? Or BG saying, I'm filling big shoes here with Amari Williams, Boston Celtics great, and I got to go out there and do my thing. If he goes out there and struggles, what does that do for his confidence? Or if he goes out there and plays really hard and everybody afterwards is really recognizing the impact that he made, what does that do for his confidence against Michigan State on November 18th, right? I'm just a big fan of, to Shawn's point, every time you step on the floor, it matters. And every time it has an impact, whether it shows up on the March Madness resume or not, you kind of set the tone. And it's funny that you mentioned Kansas, Shawn, because I pulled a couple quotes from after Kansas lost to Arkansas in the scrimmage last year. There was a couple quotes from Bill Self later in the year in February and March where he pointed to that scrimmage and he said, that's maybe part of where it all went wrong. Because we did not respond well in that scrimmage. We did not answer the call after that, and things started to cascade from there. So that Arkansas loss showed nowhere on the March Madness resume, but maybe it played a bigger part than we realize on why they were a 7 seed and lost in the first round, right? So I'm just a big proponent of that we need to go out there like this is an actual game, and it's going to have a big impact, especially if we play well down the road and kind of getting this thing kicked off the right way.
I mean, every year we've always went to champions, right? With this expectation of not knowing what we're going to get. Like that's the first one where you're like, okay, is Kentucky this? Is Kentucky that? Is Duke this? But this just gives us a different vibe and a feel because you actually get to see it against, and it's a very, very good opponent. Like, I mean, we begged for these opportunities, right, Jack? On the show, we've talked about it 2 or 3 years ago. We're like, man, we'd love to see Kentucky play in one of those. Mark Pope's here, and you get one of those. But anytime you play, you're defending your brand. Whether it counts or not, you're going out there and there's pride on the line. And this is an opportunity for Kentucky. It's an opportunity for Purdue, for both teams to go out here and say, oh, it's 40 minutes. It doesn't impact anything when it comes to what we can become. But the mental side of it, it can break you down or it can build you up, depending on how you compete in this game.
Question for both of you guys as we start to wrap this thing up. I like asking this before every kind of bigger event that we have, kind of the milestone games throughout the season. Who is going to be the player that we're talking about most once this event wraps up? Once we see the final buzzer and get the final box score from Purdue, either an individual player or a position group. What's going to be the main talking point that kind of comes out of Friday's matchup against Purdue? Spencer, I'll start with you.
So I'll go player wise. I'll call my shot. I'll say Jasper. I think Jasper, if we win, I have a sneaking suspicion it'll be because Jasper came in and made some big energy plays and hit some tough shots and kind of did some things that nobody else in this roster I don't think can do, just because of how unique he is as a player. So my guess would be on an individual, like if we're looking for that kind of changed the game a little bit, I'm thinking maybe it'll be Jasper coming in off the bench and doing some really good stuff. If we lose, I still point to what we talked about 2 weeks ago, Jack, after the pro day, where I said, I don't know if we have a guy that we can throw the ball to in the post and go get us a bucket. In the blue-white game, we had one bucket off of a post entry. It was BG kind of backing down Malachi. It was a great shot. He went right up over his left shoulder, put it perfectly on the box, and scored it. That was it. We did throw it one more time to Mo Diabate, and he got fouled. He made a really good move. Aberdeen was guarding him. Aberdeen just had to foul him, and he went 1 of 2 from free throw line. So he scored a combined 3 points off of post entries in the blue-white game. Abbreviated scrimmage, but I think if we end up losing the game, I think it's going to be because Purdue did a really good job of taking away some of that zoom action stuff and defending it really well, switching, in opportune spots. We don't shoot the ball that well, and we say, there would have been a good opportunity to be able to dump it into the post to a guy like an Andrew Carr, who can just go maybe occasionally go get you a bucket like he did late against Duke and Gonzaga and stuff. And I think if we lose, maybe it's because we didn't have that, and Purdue did a good job taking some other stuff away. So we'll see, but those are maybe two guesses.
Mine would be if Kentucky loses, I think we're going to probably key on more on not having point guard play. and not having Jaland Lowe, I think that could be an area, obviously, that could derail Kentucky in this matchup. But I just have a gut feeling that when we're together on this show again, that Trent Noah is going to get a little bit more talk. And that's just how I feel about this individual matchup. I don't know about a month from now, but I'm talking what's ready for the moment right now. And I just see this being a matchup that can fit him. And I think that he's going to get some opportunity, and I think that he's going to play very, very well, and he's going to knock down a lot of shots for Kentucky. Like, I could see this being a 14, 15-point game for Trent. And having kind of that spark of, like, is Trent going to end up being the 10th, 11th man, or is he going to play his way into being in that top 7, top 8, especially early in the season with some guys out? Is he the guy that gets the bump in minutes because he can make shots, and he's been through the fire before? So Trent would be the guy that I feel like we're going to be talking about in a few days.
Yeah, Shawn, you stole mine, because I think right now we're going into this going Braden Smith versus question mark. Who steps up there? And as Spencer said earlier, that Mo Diabate Kaufman-Wren matchup I think is going to be electric. I am very excited to see those two, maybe two of the most impactful individual head-to-head matchups on Friday. Certainly, if Jaland were in, definitely maybe two of the more impactful players for Kentucky overall. But that Fletcher Lawyer, Trent Noah back and forth, I think is going to be really, really intriguing. I think they're both going to, that could swing it. Like I could see if Fletcher goes for 14 points and hits 4 threes, or Trent goes for 14 points and it hits 4 threes. That's the difference. Whoever wins that individual matchup wins the game. So that's one I'm keeping a very close eye on. But like I said earlier, I'm hoping, I think the revenge tour, USA Minicamp 2.0, Daniel Jacobson versus Malachi Moreno. Jacobson got Malachi's spot, and I wonder if there's a little kind of extra juice there on Malachi's side to go kind of prove that he was deserving of that gold medal alongside Jasper this summer. So I'm looking forward to some of those little dynamics. But those two matchups in particular, I'm definitely keeping a close eye on. Matchup that I'm also keeping a close eye on. Are we going to play the UK coaching staff? Are we going to have a KSR game, or are we going to figure this out? Spencer, if we get this thing set up, will you be able to get your butt up in Lexington and be a part of this?
Yeah, I'll fly up there for that. That'd be fun. I would love that. That'd be pretty electric. I saw the Celtics did that, and I think I saw the score was 77-4 at one point. I hope that we don't get beat that bad. But yeah, I'd be up there for it in a heartbeat.
Shawn, give me your starting lineups and who's guarding who. Have we decided that you're coaching us, or do you want you can have some run if you want to get out there? I'm down for it too.
I've still got some run in me, but I think I would be best suited to probably be on the sidelines coaching it. So if that job is available, I would gladly take it. How much time? We got to talk. How much time do I get to prep us though? Like, how much time do we get?
I mean, you could be prepping it right now. Like, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from like creating a make-believe game plan for this just in case it ever happens. So, I mean, you could have months if you'd like.
There we go. Let's see what happens with it.
So who are the let's go coach by coach, and who would be the best individual match up there? So at point guard, probably Cody Feger for the coaches team. So I feel like Mario is the best.
That's
pure lead guard for us to shut down Cody.
Mario and Cody.
Alvin Brooks played he played D1 basketball, and I think he's a sniper. That one, I think you could get creative there for the media guys for that head-to-head matchup. I need Steven, to know. I think Steven's going to have to get that one.
Well, I was about to say, I know Steven's offensive game. I haven't talked to Steven about his defensive game, though. like maybe Steven can chime in here.
Steven is electric, but the issue is he gets winded very quickly. We got to get conditioning up with Steven. He is by far the team's best shooter. Spencer, I'm not sure your shooting capability. I'm assuming that you're capable. So this might be a good opportunity for you. Either of the three, maybe slide you into the three. But Steven can shoot the piss out of the basketball. But
He can.
you can get him beat if you run him a little bit.
I mean, not to push a button for Steven, but isn't he big on universal basketball? Do we get to pick what basketball we use? Because that might
we get ball. We get to pick home court advantage ball. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think you got to look at the young guys like Zach. Again, I've never seen anybody at KSR play basketball, but Zach Gagan, he's a young guy. You know, is Mark Fox going to be able to keep up with him running around the court and stuff like that? That's our only saving grace is maybe we can get up and down the court a little bit quicker than some of those guys can. But I mean, who's going to guard Mark Pope? I mean, he's what? He's every bit of 6'9".
Nick Roush.
Nick has to be the one. I mean, he's the only guy. He's 6'5". He's 6'5". He's the only guy that would stand a chance. But the issue is Mikhail McLean's like 6'8" too, and he is the most recent high major D1 player. He played for Houston less like a decade ago. So that could be problematic, but I feel like I'm the only one of the group. I might not be able to run with him, but I'm the only one that could throw a body on him and potentially neutralize him. And that he just has the length on me, man. Like it's just that's going to be. I just got to hold my ground and pray. Maybe I don't know, but
it's going to be tough.
That's tricky.
Yeah, he's from Houston, right? So he's got that Kelvin Sampson in him a little bit. I mean, I used to.
And he's Bahamian. He's from the Bahamas too, so he's got some real tough. He's a real tough SOB too. So that one's going to be tough, but
that's a tough one. I don't know.
Where are we throwing you in, Spencer?
I'll play the 3. I mean, I can play the 4 too. At this point in my career, I've gotten a lot of physicality in my days from when I was coaching. I did a lot of pad work. I did a lot of box out drills. Okay. I've taken. I took an elbow to the eye from Blake Griffin one time in a workout because he was back in Northland, and I was doing pad work with him and his brother, and so I've been beaten up a time or two. So you can toss me at the 4, and I'll go down there and lower my shoulder a little bit. But it's going to be tough. Our only saving grace will be if Shawn can coach us up and really coach a miracle. A 16-1 upset that might be our only chance.
I'm for it. I think our only competition is 4 points. Like we just have to score more points than the Boston Celtics media team did, and I think we're calling that.
We would do that.
Get that set up, coach. Yeah, 4 points. We could score 4 points. Yeah, I'm very much in on that. So coaches, if you're listening, or get it set up. We got the personnel. We're gonna make this happen. A quick recruiting note before we officially wrap this thing up. 4-star center Josh Irving is set to announce his decision here in the next couple of days, and Kentucky kind of quietly gaining traction there for that addition. We don't have to get into the nuts and bolts of who Josh is as a player. Long, skilled, raw, top 50-ish recruit, but definitely a high upside kid, one of the highest potential kids in the class of 2026. Just your general thought on starting this recruiting class. I think all eyes are on Tyron Stokes, and I think fans are wanting the headliner, kind of the anchor piece of the class. Do we agree with taking a player, Josh Irving, who I am very high on, but in terms of the timing when fans were kind of expecting a Tyron Stokes pop at maybe Big Blue Mountain or something like that, and then the first domino to fall being a 4-star top 50 kid, do you think there will be kind of fan backlash there? Or do we think fans are going to go, hey, it's a commitment, who cares, let's get this, the first domino to fall, maybe that leads to some momentum where Tyron will want to join the party? Like, how do you think that from the PR side of things, how do you think the fans will, should it go down this way, it's a final 3 of Texas A&M, Louisville, and Kentucky? Maybe the Louisville dynamic will help if Kentucky can get that win over Louisville. What do either of you guys think, or both of you? Shawn, start with you.
If that's the way the dominoes fall, I think it's one of those things that you trust evaluations from this coaching staff, right? And you trust who the staff is intentional about taking. So I wouldn't think there would be, to me, any negativity from it, because I still feel like that you're in a position to get the other. So like if you're in that stance and that's who decides to jump on board with you now, I think you're you take it, and you know that in this program there's value in who they take because they're so intentional with the way that they evaluate and the guys that they bring into this program that I think that's kind of the mindset that you take and the way you evaluate it and look at it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think if he comes in with the right mindset, kind of the Braden Hawthorne mindset of like, hey, if I come in and work my tail off and I'm in a position to play, great. If not, that's fine. I think, yeah, 100%. That's the kind of guy that's the kind of recruit who, like we were just talking about Houston, that U of H has been taking for years. And they cash him, they cash him on the bench and he works and develops, and he's a 11-minute a game guy as a sophomore, and then he's a 23-minute a game guy as a junior, and then as a senior, he's the starting big man on a Final Four team or something, right? He's that type of a prospect that I think you can, again, if he's willing to accept that, if he's willing to come in and be okay with like, hey, I'm going to earn my spot. If it's not in the cards this year, then that's okay. I'm going to work and I'm going to come back and be better the following year. Kind of like Braden Hawthorne, then I'm great with that. And then, yeah, of course, anytime you beat Louisville out for a recruit, I think it's a win in the Bluegrass State.
Yeah, I love this comment from Bill Deaton. I'd take a third grade commitment if it meant we beat Louisville, and then he followed it up. But that's more of a Billy Clyde move, taking third graders. But yeah, I think it's more of just an ego thing for BBN. They want the number one kid in the country. They're impatient. They're tired of waiting. I get it. I'm right there with you. I am exhausted by that recruitment. I'm ready for Tyron to pull the trigger and like have that be the big domino and then let everything else kind of fall into place one way or the other. I'm right there with you. I feel you. But there's never a bad time to take a good recruit that you believe in, one that you've evaluated, one that, he kind of flew under the radar and, played on that Puma, next 16 circuit. Like, he's one of those guys that really kind of popped late and emerged as like, hey, this is he's a year away from being a year away, but he's got some tools that really nobody else in high school basketball has. So you look at that and you trust your eye, as Shawn said, and you say, hey, we know that we can feel pretty good about Malachi Moreno coming back for year two, kind of doing the same succession plan the way Amari and BG worked, BG and now Malachi and potentially Josh Irving is, the next man up down the road, getting some great development time underneath Malachi Moreno and anybody, any other front court pieces they add through the portal or whatever. I think once we kind of let the dust settle on it and just, let things fall as they will with Tyron, I think fans will definitely come to appreciate it, assuming this is how it unfolds and Kentucky ends up landing this kid. I love him. I think he's a great ad, and I hope they can get it across the finish line and make that one happen. But definitely something I would keep an eye on if I were you, BBN. But it's setting out to be a pretty good week, pretty big week for all of us. That could happen Thursday, call it, and then we could follow that up with the number one team in the country coming to Rupp Arena on Friday. So life could be much, much worse if you were a Kentucky fan. So very much looking forward to these next couple of days. Should be a lot of fun. Excited to jump back on this and talk all about it, the ins and outs of either that commitment and then obviously definitely the exhibition game, and we'll see what happens there. So let's wrap up now. Shawn, where can fans find your work? Muted.
I haven't said it in so long I forgot. I think it's is it _Coach F. Smith?
There we go.
There we go.
Same thing with you, Spencer.
Yeah, Spencer _Smith 10 is where you can find a whole lot of nothing, but I'm there. There you go.
Oh, speak more highly of yourself. You can find me at Jack Pilgrim KSR. Go subscribe to KSR Plus. I got a bunch of great intel and all the fun stuff over there. KS Board always eats first, so make sure you go subscribe there. And with that, we'll be back next time for the Jam Packed Sources Say podcast. We will see you then.